Hello, coming to you today from the lovely Lake Havasu, which you see behind me. So I almost feel like I've been holding out on you guys, but not in a way for your benefit. I don't want to share too early when I don't have enough evidence for something, right? Like I want to be pretty clear about what it is that I'm presenting to you and sharing with you and enrolling you in, right? So I you may know that 2023 it was like pretty much one extended dark night of the soul for me. And the sort of culmination, it was like it was getting kind of worse and worse in the fall to the point where I was really starting to get pretty freaked out. I moved into a van in August. And so I lost a lot of the sort of protocols that had been supporting me in my health, including like access to a bathroom and a bathtub and, you know, easy ways to take my supplements and have like really healing epic foods that I was constantly eating and juices and all these things, like lost it all at once. And but it was like it was sort of a slow accumulation that ended up, through the fall it started to sort of get worse and worse until I'd say like really November, December, January, I was having such intensive episodes around, especially like leading up to the full moons, around my menstruation time. And those were like the extreme times where like I literally was having like such intense sort of like anxiety, maybe depression, but like to the point of feeling like I needed to die, of having these thoughts constantly running through my head, like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, and but also like a lot of the year spent with like an intensity of anger, which I was in a really deep, still am in a way, in a really deep grief process of what transpired with my personal family. But and anger is a part of the grief process, so I embraced it in a way. But it felt like there was this like avalanche of anger, and it was just so intense. And I was, doing my best to learn how to process and metabolize it, how to not repress it, but how to express it, but like in a way that was, slightly more productive. So I learned a lot of things like, dancing it out and screaming it out and journaling, this special kind of journaling called journal speak, where you just like let it rip on the page, You speak from like whatever deepest wounded part there is and just let it go. So shorthand, I called it rage journaling because that's pretty much what it was for me for months upon months upon months, days upon days, pages upon pages upon pages, notebooks upon notebooks, and like, you're supposed to burn this stuff, you're supposed to shred it, get rid of it. It's just a release process. But I just found that the anger was like endless. It was just endless. And so it would come every day in like multiple waves to the point where I was just like in tears as to be in so much anger and hatred. And one of the like main features of this like really painful time was the experience of immediately upon waking, actually usually before I even woke up. So like right as your consciousness is basically coming back into this reality, I felt like I would be like electrocuted by stressful thought and the stressful thought and I would either basically my nervous system would like immediately go into like fear and anxiety, or I would be stimulated into anger. And I pretty much started my day like this every day for months. And it didn't matter like what kind of meditations I was doing before bed. It didn't matter what kind of meditations I was doing before or when I woke up. it was literally happening before I even had those choices, to think a thought really. And my evening practice routine was pretty good. And I did at least a 30 to 40-minute meditation before bed each night. Throughout this time, I was, doing my best to follow inspiring teachings, put in the work of the meditation, going to therapy, practicing the DBT skills, practicing my expression, journaling, communicating with people, connecting with people, all the things I was doing, dancing, movement, stretching, eating well. Um, but, living in the van, I also had, many of you might know me as kind of like a liver flushing queen. And I had to take a bit of a break from that when I moved into the van because I just like couldn't figure it all out. Like you need to have running water, you need to be able to do enemas, you need to have a bathroom, you need all these things that it was just a real big adjustment for me. So I missed, so I was kind of off my routine and rhythm with that. And that's just some context because I just want you to know that like I woke up and I felt like I was being tortured upon waking. And then there were times of the month that got like way worse, and I was crying a lot throughout the day. I was like struggling to a point where I actually felt quite afraid for my life. And it sort of culminated with my birthday, January 21st. And there were some pretty significant things that happened astrologically there with Pluto moving into Aquarius, where it had been in my Capricorn planets for quite a long time. And so it was really, really intense, like my birthday was as horrible as I was afraid it might be, and including little Vita almost dying in my arms. Luckily, she didn't, and I didn't die either, which was also not a given. And I made it through. And it was only about a week later that, and meanwhile, I started to do liver flushes again, but I wasn't really having like that much success with them. And again, it was kind of like my body had gotten a bit stagnant with it. Anyways, it was after my birthday, about a week later, I did a flush. Maybe I did 2 days in a row or something like this. And I had a flush that it was again like this breakthrough flush, right? Like I had one about 2 years ago now in the fall that was like the amount of material I got out of my liver, I was like, things are never going to be the same. Like, I'm never going back. And that was when I actually was like really, really inspired to build my program and like start helping people do it because I was like, there's no, there's nothing else you can do that literally takes out half a pound of material out of that's been wedged inside of your organ, in one fell swoop. Like this is just incredible, and it's a simple, easy tool that we can all be applying in our life, right? So that's when I, you know, had the inspiration to build out the program and start inviting people to join me in the journey of liver flushing. Well, this flush that happened after my birthday was another one of like quite significant quantity of material, and I like get a little emotional thinking about it right now because I didn't even know I didn't know if it had been a good one because for like the first half of the day, I don't even feel good because it's all still in there. It hasn't gotten out. But I remember having one bowel movement and I was like, that was not poop, but that was really big. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was liver stones. They come out in different, sometimes they're like intact stones, sometimes they're like pressed together. They're not really stones, they're more like globules, clumps. They're putty like. So just because it's really big when it all comes out doesn't mean it was exactly like that when it was in your liver. But I passed this, some really, really significant material in like one chunk, like that big. And I just knew, like I felt instantly that something had changed. And and I think the next day I literally like I thought I had so much energy I had to like run around the dunes, right? I was like skipping. I felt actually like I had like lightness in my body, like my body was less material and I could like almost fly, but I like wanted to, I was like running around, right? I had so much energy. And of course, most of the time I'm talking about like I've struggled with chronic fatigue and a lot of things like post-exertional malaise. That's like a ME thing from having an inflamed brain where like if you exercise, you kind of like get punished and like you'll have like way less energy for like many days after that. Well, anyways, I was just kind of going with it, this like crazy energy. I felt like a gazelle. And but and part of the reason I'm coming on today and not sooner is because so from that moment forward, I basically feel like I woke up into a different world. And I've been saying this for a while, like, I think I jumped timelines. This is a new reality. I feel reborn. And of course, like there were a confluence of factors, right? There's like this astrological thing, there's like this birthday thing, there was like I attended this Tony Robbins thing. Was getting sort of like this blast off in a new direction. But at the same time, it you can't really explain away the fact that from that day forward, I woke up in the morning and I didn't feel angry. From that day since then through now, I woke up in the morning and I don't feel scared. I was like feeling so afraid in the morning that sometimes I was too paralyzed to get myself even anything to drink. And one of the days I was close enough to my parents' house that I like went into the house and I was like, "Dad, I'm scared." And like I couldn't even explain why, you know? And what a horrible, confusing, scary just process in itself to be witnessing oneself or witnessing one's daughter to be like, she's like losing it. Like, she can't even explain what it is that she's afraid of, but it's like still very real in the brain and in the body and in the nervous system. So, ever since then, I wake up and there's this like possibility. There's this glimmer of like, oh my gosh, maybe this is a good day. Maybe I could smile. Maybe I could start to implement more of these practices and abilities of like focusing on something good, of attending to of attending to something that might bring joy. And even without striving for any of that, just this sense of like things are okay when I wake up, as opposed to feeling like I'm literally being like electrocuted with despair and anxiety and terror sometimes, and anger. So the reason that I'm coming on now is because again, I wasn't sure how much to attribute of this to the liver flush. And so it wasn't until a few days ago that I did another liver flush. So I did two liver flushes since then, and I had no stones come out. Now I think this is because so much moved that the rest hadn't come down to come out yet, and it was packed up in there. But for a minute, I was like, maybe I'm done, you know. And then so I waited a little while, and then I did another one like 4 days ago or something, and I had some stones, and I also had this experience of like feeling a little bit of pressure, not really pain, but there was something that almost like I had done the flush, and I was like, when I would breathe, I could feel like a little bit of pressure there, a little bit of tension somewhere in my liver, and I was like, that kind of feels like something's moved, but it's kind of like wedged somewhere and it didn't fully get out. And that was my experience of the liver flush, was that it was like, a little bit came out, but something really didn't. And for the first time since then, I started to wake up in the morning with like a little bit less of that like positive outlook and like capability of joy. And so it started to take me like more effort to cultivate my state, as opposed to like oh, easy effort to cultivate gratitude and joy. Wow, what a miracle, because I've been trying these same things for really long time, right? And all of a sudden, boom, like it's possible, you know? So I just like wanna, means a lot to me to, acknowledge myself and like that this is not always, it's not always just this like failure to apply the practices or failure to try hard enough, Because when I did this sort of less successful liver flush, which honestly I should have just sailed on my good flush for as long as possible, but it's okay because I have this tool. I know how to apply it. So like I'm gonna be fine. I know exactly what to do. And patience in the process, like I literally have spent like a year in like crazy amounts of anger, and partially that's because the liver stores anger and it's been packed in there since I was a small child, like a lot of it. So here we go. Like the unpacking of it is not pretty, and we don't get a guarantee of when it's over or anything like that. So as I experience sort of like the creeping back in of like less energy and like more bad vibrations and like more doubt and more heaviness and more of that just yeah, like, and like a slight backslide, in my just energy levels. But gosh, like I'm not anywhere near to going back to before that liver flush. And I pray to God I never have to go back to that point. Like it got out. I did that. I accomplished getting it out. Wow. And so as I witness this sort of like minor backslide, this is what gives me the information. And so I can be sad, oh look, I kind of did this to myself. I'm kind of going backwards. But why I'm so grateful about it is because now I have the confirmation that the liver flush is absolutely highly responsible to this complete change of reality and experience for me in my brain, right? And in my life, because things are transforming before my eyes really quickly. Doors are opening, inspiration's coming. All of these things are starting to flow, right? Because bile flow equals life flow. And so things are flowing on the external as well as on the internal. And wow. So now I feel more confident in sharing with you that I had a breakthrough liver flush and I feel like a brand new person in a brand new world. And I want to share this with you because I have a great group of people who are implementing the protocol right now and getting amazing results for themselves too. And I've studied holistic healing modalities and all this stuff for 15 years. And what it led me to is liver flushing, because how else can you go in there and extricate all of this foreign built up toxic material out of your organs so that it can actually function as it wants to, as it's trying to get the circulation it needs, right? And start to breathe again. And in this way we get more space in our bodies and in our life and in our minds. And so I just want to celebrate the fact too that I think I'm really onto something, that it's not just about your discipline, it's not just about saying your thank yous, which is amazing when you can do that, when you're capable of doing that, you know. But sometimes we literally have to address the physical. And if we don't, if we, so like you can still do it, right? If you don't address the physical, but when we do address the physical, wow, can you clear the path? Wow, can you make it easier on yourself to apply those other tools and skills, you know? Because I just moved out piles of anger that have been keeping me down. And there's lots of ways to heal, right? But I just love that this tool is so accessible to us. It involves such cheap ingredients, and we can do it in our own comfort of our own home, even a van. If I can do it in a van, you can do it in a house, you know? So if you've been thinking about it, just realize that like this change can happen at any time. And then what kind of life do you get to live, you know? That's stuckness. That's stuckness. I relate so much to the stuckness. And that stuckness is stagnation and it's stuck in there. And we can get it out. We can break it up. We can get it out. We can move forward with our life, right? So, if that's something you want and you're interested in, please reach out. I'm totally available to support you if you're dedicated to this process. It does take personal work, dedication, determination, commitment, but I've never seen something that can move the needle like this so quickly. And I'm not removing any organs or losing any pieces. I'm making more room for myself, I think, inside of here. So that's the message I wanted to come on and share today. And I'm wishing you all a beautiful day. I'm Sienna Songbird, and may all beings be liberated.